We are here having a conversation with Rachel. What is up, Rachel?
Hi.
Whoop, whoop.
We were just talking. How many episodes do you think we've done? This has to be around 60.
I think so. But I have
4 years.
absolutely no idea. No. We were talking earlier today about how terrible, like, it's with everything you do, right? Like how you're just, anything you try in the beginning is just so bad, and you just have to like keep just like trying and doing a terrible job to like learn,
Yep.
And it's with everything.
Yeah.
Like you just have to accept the fact that like it's gonna suck
Well,
at
trying
first.
it for sure on the podcast realm. Hey, is this your first podcast?
It's actually my second.
Yes. Okay.
Yay!
All right. So you're a pro.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank
see
you for
about that.
joining us. Thank you
Yeah,
for joining
thanks
us
for
today.
having
We
me.
appreciate it. We know that you are a rock star real estate agent.
But
And we met with you and kind of heard your story, and you haven't been in the business too long. So give us some background about how you got into real estate.
yeah. I don't know how far back we're going, but I was a school social worker for 20 years. Went on a camping trip in 2020 with friends and friends of the family, and just got talking to getting burnt out in one field and wanting to start another one. And for lack of better words, I got talked into it, but then did my research and slowed down and said, hey, I need to interview some working women in the field and figure out if my social work skills would really transfer well. And did just that. I interviewed a couple women that were rock star real estate agents at the time, and figured out I could do this momming thing and professional thing and balance thing, or, the elusive balance thing. And then I read an article that really changed my mind. I think it was a New York Times article, and I can't remember exactly when it was written or who it was by. All I know is it was a social worker that claimed that she had all these skills that were really easily transferable. And to me, it meant I didn't have to start a career over. I didn't have to start from scratch. And kind of took it from there. Some of those skills were everything from, if I were about to run into a couple that were having a hard time figuring out what to do, I used my marriage counseling skills that I had learned. And if I had a person selling a house that was really grieving the loss of this change and this transition, I could use my grief counseling skills. And so when I read that article, it all kind of clicked, and I was like, okay, I do have some things that I can move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And then since then have certainly learned that I had a lot of good customer service skills. I had a lot of good communication skills, and I have a lot of good problem solving skills, because no one realizes how much problem solving is involved in real estate. There's a lot.
Well, I really appreciate that we're sitting here today and talking, because we worked for the same school district, and I think have had similar experiences in the level of burnout, and kind of like a realization of how can these skills be used in different ways, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting what you said, because so much of being a social worker and what your role was in education helps, like, you have a high emotional intelligence, I would say, IQ, and so EQ. Yep.
I think you're just trying to bring up the IQ conversation again. She beat me in an IQ test a while back, and I just haven't heard
so
the
sorry.
end.
I didn't mean to bring that up again.
IQ again?
Did we tell you that? Did we tell you the story?
No, did someone say IQ?
Yeah, right.
Well, let
She's just
me tell
waiting.
you
The IQ test.
So I do want to get back to this EQ, but just really quickly.
My gosh, why did I go into this?
He's a very competitive person, and so there was like a moment in time. Most of the time, he beats me at everything, whatever. However, there was like a few months where like I was beating him in mini golf and
was a day
chess.
where you beat me in chess,
a day,
Connect 4, and like mini golf.
Okay.
And then so like at the end of the day, I was like, all right, what can I do? And I'm like on my phone, and I was like, oh, an IQ test. And she beat me.
So we took it.
Never
and
gonna do that again.
Never gonna live it down.
I was in like the top 3% or 2%.
Jeez, no, I don't know.
Mensa, here you come.
Anyway, so
Yeah.
I just.
Well, you said EQ though.
Yeah. So I do want to go back to this, because I think, in so many facets of business, it's like EQ can make or break. I mean, you could be great at writing contracts. You could be great at like problem solving, but ultimately, like, if you don't know how to connect to people, however they come to you, like, you're not going to have business. And I think you're really good at that. And I think that that's something that has made you really successful out of the gate.
Yeah, I think there's some misnomers to what real estate is, and people think it's just showing fancy houses and, and then you just write this contract and it's accepted and you sell it and you give them the keys and you take the money. And there's just so much more finesse to it. And there's so much more to building a relationship and creating trust with people and their largest financial transaction that they're ever going to experience, let alone then guiding them the whole way through this is exciting. Oh my gosh, what I just get myself into. And the house is amazing. And I just found all these inspection issues and they're on this roller coaster. And I'm very grateful that I have this experience, the background experience in being able to empathize and being able to walk them through like the highs and the lows and being able to read their body language when one client one day can say, I'm super excited. And I can kind of see that they say that, but they don't look it. And I'm like, we're going to let this simmer for a little bit because I think that they might turn a corner tomorrow. Like I literally just walked out of a showing an hour ago and he's super excited. Mr. Buyer's really excited. She's like, okay, I could probably go this way. And I've shown him enough houses that I know that they need like 24 hours to really settle. And be like, all right, so we've talked about it and we decided we didn't want the house or whatever. Where I've seen other agents walk into the industry and get really rigid with, well, this is the way it's supposed to be. And they're just supposed to either know or not know, or I'm supposed to push them or I'm not supposed to push them. And it's like, you got to constantly be reading that emotional feedback and communication feedback, most of which is nonverbal body language, right?
Now, did you read that article before you actually made the jump into real estate, or was it after you had jumped?
No, before I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before I even
That's
signed
great.
up to take the class, because I was like, I'm not even going to go down this route if it's not for me.
So you went into it knowing that skill set would transfer over, and you just kind of ran with that idea, is that I'm going to continue to do what I've been doing, but I'm just going to transfer it over to this new field.
Yeah, I think for the most part, the article told me I could do a lot of the counseling stuff that I learned. But what I came to learn is I actually had a lot more of like that professional background, just working in schools and having to meet with parents and, key stakeholders in the building and professionals in education alone just led me to the point of being able to have the communication skills to write an email. I mean, I work with people who cannot write clear emails, and they're agents, right? We're not all made the same. Yeah. And so there's certainly that background that I didn't realize had not everything to do with social work, but a lot to do with just being a professional too, and being able to transfer some of those skills.
I also think, I'm just thinking about my own personal experience, but I know that you have felt this too, like the level of stress that you have on like a daily basis with like putting out fires or like handling different situations in education, particularly in the position that you were in. I think that like transferring over into like a real estate transaction and maintaining this calm in the storm is, I would assume, likely unusual, because I think a lot of agents get really frazzled in situations. And so I think having a background of where like you've been in places where like it's way more stressful than what's going on. So like you can walk into a situation where others might think it's incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
And create a calm presence.
No, I think that's a really good point. I have worked side by side with some of my colleagues, either training them or shadowing them or vice, it could be one or the other, in which they might have a completely different approach to the client who's freaking out. Yeah. Like literally freaking out. Yeah. And I'm like, we're good. This isn't our stress. This is theirs. Our job is to manage it. Our job is to help them manage their stress instead of like become part of it. It's like you get that inspection report and it's 20 major red flag items going on. And I've seen agent be like, oh my gosh, how are they going to buy this house? And I'm like, that's not our stress yet. Just see if they want the house the way it is. And sometimes they're like, oh, those are nothing. Yeah. Like they actually aren't that stressed out about it. Or if they are, then you go, okay, let me know which ones of these 20 items are the bigger of the deal. Like, let's start compartmentalizing it. Let's start biting it, like, eating it one bite at a time. And I think that that's definitely helped in just not realizing I had that skill. But in hindsight, I was at a huge peak of stress in my old job where I was literally like chasing kids, or they were throwing things at me, or, we had parents.
Deal. That's fine.
No big deal. This is just all in a day's work. Or, parents that were threatening my life where I'm like, oh, you just have a piped burst on pipe burst underneath the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
That's nothing. We
Yeah.
can handle that. So I kind of have a different like mentality of, oh, that's nothing, where there's other agents that I might work with that are like, oh, that's a life-changing everything, because they haven't experienced that huge peak, where I'm grateful for saying it can be so much worse. Everything can always be so much worse. So
Yeah, you just have like a different threshold for stress.
yeah.
Now, still though, real estate is a complicated industry. And when you started on a really high producing team. Like, were there stumbling blocks at the beginning? And if so, what were those? Like, what were some of the biggest challenges?
Well, I started in 2020.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
So
no challenges there. You're good.
Yeah. The first stumbling block is like, how do you even get in a house and how do you even get in front
Yeah.
of people? But at the same time, then I was also there to ride the wave through 2021 when everything was coming fast and furious. So I think I picture the like I Love Lucy factory where, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The conveyor belt with the chocolate. And she's like, this is cool. I can wrap them and we're good. And then all of a sudden she can't wrap them fast enough. She's popping in her mouth. And now that things have settled down or, kind of balanced again, I'm like, again, I've seen the peak in the market. So now things aren't as crazy. But I would say back then, I joined a team with the impression I would get lots of leadership, and I did. I got lots of leverage because there were other agents on that team with me that I could learn from, which was the hugest benefit. But of course, you don't realize that you're really your own business. And you've got to figure out how you want to do your business, but then you have to go find the people that want to work with you too. And it's not just handed to you, it's earned, and you got to earn it. And sometimes the hard way. And in the beginning, I was granted an opportunity I'm very grateful for to say, the leader of our company said, will you be my right-hand woman? And I was like, yeah, sign me up. Because if I can be in his back pocket and learn everything he's doing, I will take it at a cost to what we call a slingshot. I'm okay being held back if it means that I'm going to have all this experience and repetition to fly forward. And so it was me humbling myself in the beginning and saying, yes, I will run that menial task. If it means that I'm going to learn a lot of all the intricacies instead of just show up and be like, where are my clients? And just give them to me. That's not how it works. This business is you kind of have to start from the ground up. And I was just grateful to have him on speed dial, but he had me on speed dial. So he was also like, Rachel, where are you? It's 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning. I know you're at hockey, but I need you to go show a house on the other side of town. I was like, got it. I'll go home. I'll comb my hair. I'll get there. I figured it out. So I think that was a crazy rush of almost being thrown in the deep end really quick because I had someone that had all the clientele and then also being like, all right, I'm all in. I signed up for this. So it's not going to be a easy, slow entrance into the pool.
But part of that is, you have a choice, I think, sometimes to make, not sometimes, all the time, this idea of instant gratification versus potentially delayed gratification. So I think what you did is you realize hey, if I, slow down a little bit and really focus, not slow down, if I jump into a crazy situation, and really delay some of those potential, things that you were maybe thinking that you were going to do off, from the get-go. I think that's really important when people are starting, because a lot of times you're not, if you walk into it with the mindset of you having instant gratification or instant, it's just not going to happen.
Do you feel like that paid off then, coming in that way? Are you glad?
Tenfold.
Yeah.
I would do it all over again, and I would tell anyone to do it that way. I think that there's kind of a misperception that you're going to get into real estate and have all this elusive flexibility, right? We're chasing this flexible, balanced lifestyle. And in my mind, I was probably sold a little bit on, I don't have to work a 9-to-5 job. I don't have to report to anybody. I could actually run an errand in the middle of the day. I was thinking all this until I was granted this opportunity to jump in the deep end. And I was like, okay, everything's off the table again. If I see my kids, great. If I don't, this is where I'm going to run hard. And I think part of it in hindsight was maturity, where I'm I wasn't fresh out of college going, this is what I think I need and want. I was kind of I need to trust that there's a process. People have gone before me. If they say do it this way and I'll have a better chance, then I'll do it that way. Where I've seen other agents that I work with be like, nope, I'm going to try it my way. And they're still struggling. Where that's where I go. If I could do it all over again, I'd still link arms with someone that knows what they're doing, can lead me, guide me, give me some answers when I need them, and just in a way give me street cred, because every time I got a deal done with him, I got the success too. Like I got another transaction under my belt. I got more repetition. I got all those things. And so did I have to put in 60 hours to get there? Absolutely. Would I do it again? Yes. Yeah. Because I know that the 60 hours up front every week for a long, long time means eventually I can get there instead of that slow grind to keep working forever.
Right. Well, and that I think of that quote, like discipline equals freedom, like discipline, especially at the beginning of a career, I think anyone who's a successful salesperson had to go through a phase like that. Like it didn't just, you see people and you're just like, because we have a lot of these conversations where, it's like, how did you become successful? And how you mentioned it, like at the very, especially with having success in such a short period of time. And you've only been in the business, three and going on 4 years. And that's really not a long time in the grand scheme of things. But like you said, going in, making those sacrifices early has probably given you some of that freedom that you were hoping that you were going to get at the beginning now, right?
Yeah.
Can you run an errand in the middle of the day?
I can. Yeah. Well, and I think by being someone's, for lack of a better word, assistant and partner, and at the time I was a showing partner. So I did a lot of the showings while he wrote the contracts and negotiated them, and I would watch and I'd be a fly on the wall and I'd learn a lot, but I was really doing like all the busy work so that I did all the running. And now I know what that feels like to be that person. And when I get to the point where I'm really good at writing contracts and negotiating, I want to be back with my kids watching the hockey game or the baseball game. And so I can do that if I have someone running for me. And so partnering up with someone who can do the showings and go to the inspections and be kind of boots on the ground, I have been able to leverage and step into that position of having some more of my time back and running an errand in the middle of the day, because he'll go show our clients 3 or 4 houses. Mind you, I will too. But for the most part, if he runs that way, then I could do this way. And we just yin and yang really well together that way.
Well, and that's great. There's probably different types of challenges that come up with that, right? With building a team and running a team and finding the right people. We've dealt with that. Luckily, we've got a great team of people now, but that takes a while.
You can't get rid of me. We're like stuck together. You get that, right? You know.
I get that.
Okay.
We're stuck together in a lot of ways.
I'm just double checking that you know that. Okay.
Through thick and thin. You think I was gonna let you go or something?
Not
You're
right
the
here.
boss.
We're in the middle of a
You're the
podcast.
boss.
Rachel can
Rachel,
counsel.
we need to have a conversation. Yes, we brought
what
you
do
here
we need
for
to talk
this
about?
reason.
I was blindsided.
Oh, jeez. How much time we got here?
I would say that having my partner Julio is like a work husband, right? He's like being married. We've got to figure out how we're communicating. And once a week we look at each other and go, how are we doing? We do. We literally do that. And it's like, how are we communicating? Where are we off? We look at each other like I would my husband. And I say, what's our next week look like? Tell me your calendar. I'll share my calendar when I'm going out of town. Like the same type of communication I'd have at home, I have with my partner, because we have to be in sync and we talk every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Communication is so important.
And I think front loading and setting expectations around that like business relationship is so important, because 100%. if you're working from like a reactive standpoint, if like things aren't working well, it's really hard to address those once things are not going well. So it's nice that you guys are proactively like sitting down every week and have that like system in place. Okay. I am interested. You kind of talked about having a system in place where you and Julio kind of check in with each other every week or whatever. What other like systems or like time management hacks have you kind of put into your business that have helped you with being able to be at such a high level?
I think as we were saying earlier, you learn the hard way.
Yes, always.
And you look back and you're like, oh, what was I doing back then? The old pick up the phone whenever wasn't working for me, right? Because that's the thing that's always attached to your hand, and they can find you.
Yes.
So I've definitely put some boundaries around like not answering client calls until at least 8 a.m. I know that sounds like crazy to those that aren't aware of the industry, but you can get calls as early as 6 and they last until 10 or 11 at night. Same thing with like 8 p.m. because you again, my experience, you train people how to treat you, right? You teach them how to treat you. 100%. And so if I'm answering my phone at 9 p.m., they know to keep calling me and texting me at 9 p.m. And so same thing with my partner. We do a lot of like blocking on our calendars of when he's available and when he's not, and me respecting when he's available and when he's not. And so that I can say, I got your back. If you have something personal going on, I got your back. I think some other things that we do just kind of to be in sync with each other is sharing each other's calendars. And then when we do check in, it's kind of who are the active clients. We have lists of the ones that we're showing houses to this week. We have kind of the hot that are getting ready to be shown houses, and or they're in the like last phases of getting financing, or we have the warms that are a little, maybe a couple months down the line, waiting for their lease to be done or waiting for a trip to be over or a job, to be hired or whatnot. And so we're just staying in touch with them. So we kind of have a rhythm of who we are, the kind of the immediate needs, the ones that we're still nurturing or taking care of, and the ones we just want to keep in contact with. So we're doing what we call pipeline meetings, where we're talking about the pipeline of all of our clients, on top of taking care of what we call past clients, but they're not past, they're still our clients. They're like private clients. And so taking care of them and checking up on them and seeing how they're doing after they've moved into their house, whether it's been a week or a month or a year, either offering to bring them something. Like we often try to bring them either dinner. Sometimes they're like, we don't need dinner. I'll bring you cookies or I'll bring you coffee. Like, I just want to see your place and see how you're settling. Sometimes people are like, it doesn't look good enough. And we're like, that's fine. You want to meet out. Like,
you want to see my house?
You want to go over to my house?
Let me tell you what my house is like.
But like Julio has gone hiking with some of our clients, like after they're long and gone and moved in, right? I've hit up happy hour with some of my clients. It's kind of nice to just always have that pipeline of past, present, future clients. I think that's a big thing in how we yin and yang together. We use Marco. If you're not familiar with Marco Polo, it's a video messaging app. Okay. I use that probably for 75% of the communication with my team as a whole, meaning my transaction coordination team and my colleagues and my leadership and Julio.
So what's the difference between that and just like an email to everybody?
Because I can send a video while I'm driving down the road.
Okay.
And
gotcha.
I spend a lot of time in my car. And so I just push the button and I'm driving as if Julio's sitting in the front seat next to me. And I'm like, here's the update on the showing I just had, or here's the thing we need to do when we get back to the office. And so I don't have to text and I don't have to email.
And does it save within that app so they can go rewatch it if they want to?
Beautiful. Yep. Oh. So they can,
Marco.
you can see them showing up as watching it live while I'm recording it, or they're not on there and you can see when they watch it later. Or they can go back and watch it 10 times if they're like, I want to catch what she said.
Cool.
It's also another hack, another real estate hack, is when we have out-of-state clients that come to town, we use the Marco Polo app. Okay. Because we have found FaceTime inevitably loses reception. Zoom, you spend half the time trying to figure out how you can connect on Zoom.
Right.
And if you can get them on Marco Polo, it's a free app, unless you want to upgrade. If you can get them on Marco Polo and just tell them, I'm going to go see this house for you, even though you're in Chicago. I'm going to go show you this house at 10 o'clock on Tuesday morning. They will either show up live and you'll see them watching my video as I walk through the house showing it to them, or they can watch it later. Or then their husband comes home from work or their wife comes home from work and the both of them watch it again. And then we can keep going back and forth. Even in the middle of the video, they can text me and my banner will fall down and say, can you make sure and go back and look at the kitchen pantry? I'm still videotaping. And I'm like, yes, I will look at the kitchen pantry for you. And so it kind of is in combo, or I'll push pause and they videotape something back to me. And we can have a back and forth conversation. And it's all recorded on a cloud. So it's not even taking up any of my memory on my phone. It's beautiful.
Wow, that is. I've actually never heard of that app.
I'll take a hit on commission or whatever you call that when you promote.
Sponsored.
I'll take a sponsorship on Marco Polo. Yeah.
We'll let them know.
Yeah.
That's a great hack.
So a ton of communication is that way. And then you can put yourself in a group. So it can be me, Julio, and our client and their sister and their mom who's watching. And all 5 of us can watch the same walkthrough from a house. Same thing if it's me, Julio, and our transaction coordinator having a discussion about a transaction. The 3 of us are all in the same Marco Polo group.
I love that. I do want to jump back just a second. You mentioned, training people on how to communicate with you. What is your process for that? Like, do you have a presentation that you're talking with your buyers or sellers at the beginning and saying, hey, these are my hours of operation? Yeah. Okay. Only because I think that that's very important. Yeah. But like, I feel like if someone calls you at 9 and you answer it once, it's kind of like you have to keep that going throughout the whole
Mhm.
process. But if you set the expectation up front that you're only working certain hours, it's better
Then you
that
can
way.
say,
But
remember
then-
when I said.
right.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, when do you do it and how?
Well, and I'm not a solo agent. So I don't come across as a solo agent. So from the get-go, I'm constantly talking about my partner. And so I set up expectations around, we're going to put us on a 3-way text or a 3-way Marco Polo. And if I'm not available, Julio will respond. And if Julio is not available, I will respond, so that they understand if there's kind of a lull that one of us will jump in, but there aren't necessarily like time parameters.
Gotcha.
If that
Okay.
makes sense. So
That makes
that's a
sense.
huge expectation we set up from the get-go.
Yeah.
We also try and explain our different roles so that they
Mm.
kind of know who to go to, but always in the same communication, because if they sideline and just have a single conversation with Julio, he'll actually bring it back to the group text or the group Marco and be like, I know you want to go see 123 Main Street, and I'll see you there at 2:00. And that just gives me a heads up. They're
So
about
you
to go
know.
see 123 Main Street.
Yeah.
So that's another way that we just are always communicating.
What I like about the Marco Polo thing that you were just talking about is, and we use BombBomb.
Mhm.
So, but what I think is really, really valuable about video is it humanizes the words coming out of your mouth. So like in a way that maybe your clients see a text come through, right? Like they might think of you in a positive way or whatever, but like when you're like a face on a video, it
Yeah.
just changes the connection that you have, I think, with people sometimes. And so I think that probably, like you were mentioning before, builds trust and credibility because you're creating that connection with your clients.
100%. If I meet somebody on the phone call, I will get off the phone call and send them a video message of me. So that
me too.
if they don't want to meet on Zoom, or it's just not a good time, or if they don't want to do
Mhm.
Google Meet, I will make sure that they see me some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, because they're also talking to multiple realtors,
Yeah.
multiple lenders
Mhm.
most of the time. So I think that's also a differentiator,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and,
Mhm.
and then it adds tone too. You mentioned the text. I
Yep.
think sometimes text can be misread. So when you do the video, it adds that tone and they can actually
Yeah.
see your personality come through.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's great. I want to check that app out.
I'm going to start sending you videos.
I know.
We can
Well, I
be
like
a
it too.
3-way
Yeah.
group.
Yeah, well, I like it too, because then you can go back and watch it, you know, because like it's so hard, even if you're having a conversation with someone like, oh, what did they say?
Yep.
You know, if
So
it's
true.
recorded.
Mhm.
So like, yeah, if it's recorded, you could go back. I could do a whole episode on
So
that.
I'll tell you, I mentor other agents on my team. And when I say, if it's urgent, call me, I will absolutely walk you through whatever. But if it's not urgent and you can Marco me a question, I'll give you the answer. And one particular agent always says, I love it because I can go back and keep watching
Yeah.
it until I
Yes.
almost write it down like a script.
Yeah.
And then she has the verbiage instead of like in the moment having to be like, what did you just say? And I'm like, I can't remember what I just said.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we're talking fast here, you know?
Uh-huh.
So that really helps in training too.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, those are great, you know, time management and efficiency tips, which we like to talk about a lot on here. So I take it like, you know, teaming up with Julio sounds like it has scaled, you know, just your business and probably opened up time for you to still to attend a hockey game
Mhm.
and feel like you have that quote unquote work-life balance,
Mm-hmm.
the elusive work-life
Yeah.
balance.
As you're
Always
working
trying
at a
to
game,
find
yeah.
it. I know.
Well, and I know, I mean, there's not like an actual 50-50 balance, you know, we're still working most of the time, but I feel like the more efficient that you can become with your calendar, the more available you are for those important moments for your family, that
Mhm.
even if that's only 10% of your day,
Mm-hmm.
it feels like you're more balanced. There,
God,
right?
you know what I can't remember where I read this, but somewhere, but it was basically talking about like the most important minutes of your kid's life is like, I think it was like the first like 4 minutes when they wake up or when they see you in the morning, and then it's
Mhm.
like 4 minutes after school or at nighttime. But like kids, they did this research study where essentially like they were asking kids, you know, like, were your parents there for you?
Mm-hmm.
And it actually didn't matter like length of time, but it was like very clearly these like specific times with a
Mhm.
kid. And I'm always like
The
thinking
important
about that,
moments.
like, you know, like they actually don't need me, you know, watching like every single second of their, you know, whatever they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more important that like in those intentional minutes that I spend with them, that like
Mhm.
they know I'm like paying attention to them or listening to them tell me the same story when I put them in for the 8 millionth time. Our
I
daughter.
hear a lot of stories.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like sometimes my kids do give me a hard time. They're like, you were on the phone when I was playing baseball. I was like, but I was at the baseball game.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
It would be different if I had to go meet with someone across town and I
Yep.
wasn't there. So like we kind of have to balance both
Totally.
worlds too. If I can be there and aware, yes, not completely, in all the space of watching the baseball game.
That's what sunglasses are for.
Is there an app that you can just be digitally communicating with someone while watching?
I literally,
While watching the
I
game?
remember I like learning this like in the summer at the pool because they'd be like, "Mom, watch me," and I'd be like, "I
Yep.
can't do this anymore." So
Just
I was like,
looking down at your phone.
"Yeah, that looks great."
So let's say this. Let's say I'm a brand new realtor, right? I just
Mhm.
got my license. What would one piece of advice that you would give me be today? Like, where do I start, Rachel? What do I do?
I mean, I can't say that my experience was bad. I would say a lot of people could go and do exactly what I did and link up with someone that has the leadership that you're willing to follow and trust, and perhaps the leverage where they can give you some of those resources that you wouldn't necessarily have to go out and otherwise find. When I joined my team, it was a matter of like, here are the software programs or the apps, and here's a inside sales agent that can help, yes, push leads in your direction, but it's still your job to convert them, right? So leadership, leverage, and I think, I don't know where this is from, so I feel bad when I don't quote people precisely, but if you Google it, hungry, humble, and smart is
Yeah.
like a
Oh.
3-way.
Yeah.
Are you guys familiar with that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And when I try and like summarize anything else, it keeps coming back to like those 3 qualities. Like
Yeah.
I've had agents say, I want to do this. And I'm like, are you hungry enough? Oh, I just thought I could sit back and people would just want to come buy a house from me. Well, it's going to take a lot of hunger. And I've had an agent that actually wanted to join our team a couple years ago, and there was nothing humble about him. Honestly, like there was just so much ego that he was going to struggle until he finally went, gosh, there's a lot for me to learn. And so I think the humility is huge when you have to learn a brand new language, let alone career and industry. And then the smarts are just simply like you get more confidence when you are more competent. And so the more of these like trainings we can go to and the educational CE courses we can take, like the more you can speak more articulately to your agents and other agents and clients, and then you have that trifecta, like hungry, humble, and smart.
And that's not as common as you might think. The hungry, humble, smart, like to have all 3, And I think there's a book,
Patrick
and I don't.
Lencioni.
Okay, yeah. Is that the name of the book? Hungry, humble, smart, or is it
Ideal Team Player?
Ideal Team Player? Yeah, that's where that came from. But I think I'd have to go back through it. But I think it's like 2 of the 3 are okay. Like 1 of the 3 is never okay, and 3 of the 3 is really hard to find. But I think when you can find those are like your A players.
But what's
Like
interesting about like it being an ideal team player is you don't have to be on a real estate team to adhere to that. You're on a team with your clients. And I think that's a misperception, is they're like, I'm just going to tell you what to do, or I'm just going to, lead you and you need to follow. But you're really teaming up with clients and saying, I'll give you options so you can make an informed decision. But what do you think? And, yes, there's some leading. They want you to lead.
Yeah.
You have the expertise in the field. But you're also teaming up with the other agent you're working with on the other side of the buying situation. You're teaming up with the lender and saying, let's collaborate so we give our client the best financial, situation for the house they want to buy. You're teaming up with the title company that's giving you all this information as it comes down the pipe. Like, I don't think people understand how much teaming is involved in real estate at so many different levels.
There's so much. Yeah, there's so much on every single transaction. Then if you have 4 or 5 transactions going on at the same time, double that, because
you're on 4
you've got
or 5
another
different teams.
Yeah.
I just started playing circus music in my head.
Crazy.
Keep going.
No, that's good.
And part of that smart piece too is related to like emotional intelligence, like
which is related to the awareness of, okay, I made a mistake and I'm going to change it next time, or the awareness of I'm going to set up a one-on-one meeting with my team and talk about pipeline, and maybe in that pipeline meeting talk about, hey, what happened here and what can we add to the system to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
We love that. We talk about it all the time. because it's just such an interesting concept when you're thinking about people, like breaking those like really, because I think when you look at successful people, you're always like, what is it? Like what makes them successful?
Right.
And what I love about this idea is it tangibly breaks like 3 really important pieces down, you know, where you can like really, as you're building a team or you're thinking about how to connect with people, you can think through like some pretty easily think through those 3 things.
Yeah.
And it's something that you can, you know, move forward with, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just like it.
No,
because
I like that you brought that up because I don't think we haven't talked about that. Maybe not ever on this podcast. And if it has been, it's been years. But that's funny because we were just talking about that 80-20 rule. How come 2 people with the exact same situation, same company, same industry, one is successful, one is not? Maybe that's what it is. It's the hungry, it's the trifecta there.
It's like how come or how when 2 people take an IQ test or like play mini golf.
I knew it wasn't going to be
like
just this smooth. I knew it was coming back up.
How?
We're not talking about that right now. You barely beat me, and I do want a rematch, and it's going to happen, and I'm going to study this.
He
next
made
time.
me go bowling.
Rachel,
it was like 2 days later, and he kicked my ass and was like,
I need a redo.
I need
another redo. I need another redo.
All right, surprise question here. You want to throw a surprise question out?
Yeah. If you could write a book on anything, what would it be?
One of my favorite real estate coaches, Eric Hatch, he's out of Fargo, North Dakota, has a fabulous quote, and I'm going to steal it from him because he says something to the degree of, I don't know if I want to write a book, but I want to be a chapter in someone else's book.
I love that.
And I think that would be the biggest honor, is to say that I can make an impact great enough to, no one has to listen to me in my book. But maybe if I showed up big enough in someone else's life, you know, whether I helped them through an experience, which is like why I started with social work in the beginning. I went to Ecuador when I was 17 and I taught kids how to brush their teeth and vaccinated dogs and cats. Like, this is where this all started. Who would have known 30 years later, I would be a real estate agent trying to use some of the same like servant leadership skills in helping others.
And do you feel like you're in the spot where you're supposed to be right now?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
That's a beautiful feeling.
Yeah.
I just want to mention this really quickly before we wrap up, but what I also appreciate about you is that you do have like a servant's heart, and I think that you are very intentional about getting on a team with those same sorts of values. And I think that when you are in a position where you are aligned with your values through your work, that you are much happier, you know, and when you're just really thoughtful and intentional about being connected to people that have the similar values as you, that can be really helpful when you are trying to find joy and happiness in the work that you're doing.
That is very spot on.
Just kidding. Just felt really emotional.
No, but if Andrew were to ask the question again, what would I do, or what would I tell someone about how to start, would be aligning with a team just like that you felt like you could connect with. Not that they're going to give you anything more than you just feel like you can be one of them. Right. And that there's a cultural connection, like you are of the same culture. And I think that was a big part of the team I'm on, and even just the brokerage I work for, just being a very servant minded. It's more about we, not me. You know, it's about all of us, and it's about lifting everybody up and not putting anyone down, and all the things that come with that. Just taking the initiative.
I love that.
Well, let's hear tell us about your company and the name of your company, and so that if a realtor was listening to this and they're interested in maybe joining a team like that, like where do you work?
Sure. So as of this moment, I work for the Jordan Terrell Group. However, we are rebranding, and we are now going to be called Community. And why is because Community is more encompassing, because what Jordan has done as a single agent is grown people that were just attracted to him, in which he started a group he stumbled upon. And by doing that, he also wanted to bring in all the leverage that agents need. And so under this Community umbrella, now we have a TC department, which is transaction coordination. And they also help with listing services. And we have an ISA department, which is inside sales agents. And there's 4 of them. And so they're helping filter all the marketing and getting all the leads from our lead sources. of which they have Zillow connections and Fellow and Ojo and a number of different lead sources. And then we have admin, and the administration is overseeing just kind of the operations as a whole. And so community can house individual agents and it can house teams. And so I'm now a small team under the community umbrella. Community then is a team under Real, and Real is a brokerage. When we started with Real in 2021, as the Jordan Terrell Group joined hands with Real, we were agents 1,200, 1,300. Last week, I went to San Diego for a Real conference. It was their second annual at this point. They've been in the business for 10 plus years. We're at 12,000.
Wow.
So they have already
huge
10x'd the number of agents that they have, again, based on that cultural piece, that they have really attracted people that are like-minded and kind of getting rid of the old stereotypes of agents and real estate and really bringing in this fresh. And it's cloud-based. Like, there's not a lot of overhead, so we're not paying for big, shiny offices in New York City. We're just paying kind of the minimum caps and commission splits, and then the rest is going back in the agent's hands. So they have rev share and stock options and ways in which that they support inward rather than upward.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of value and opportunity.
It's neat.
For agents out there.
It's really cool.
So where can our listeners find you?
Well, I am right now Rachael at jordanterrellgroup.com, and it's spelled like Terrell. But it's JORDANTERRELL group.com. And I don't see that email going anywhere yet. I'm also on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram as Rachael Friesen. Last name is Friesen.
And Rachael with an AEL.
Yes, I spelled like Michael. That's the best way people can remember.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here today. We really enjoyed our time. So
thanks for having me. I appreciate it.